Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Spencer Schect. I work here at the Institute on the client engagement team. Hope the day's programming has been engaging and informative. It is my pleasure to keep things moving with another fascinating panel, this one on CCS technology. This will take the form of 3 10-minute presentations on some of the top technological developments and innovative business models from across the CCS spectrum. Our speakers will be highlighting a diversity of solutions and discussing the accelerating momentum behind these innovations. It is going to be a challenge to follow Mr. Pershing's energizing remarks, but I know our speakers are up to it. Our esteemed speakers are Kristinn Lárusson, Head of Business Development at Carb, Mike Belenkie, CEO and President of Entropy, and Chad Badry, Senior Director, Business Development at Svante. Please note that this session will not have a Q&A portion. However, there will be a refreshment and networking break immediately following. We encourage you to hold your questions until then, as this will allow the opportunity for you to engage the speakers there. And I have been told there will be smoothie shots, so everyone, moderation. Without further ado, Kristinn Lárusson, Head of Business Development at Carb.
So hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kristinn Lárusson. I'm heading business development for Carb, commercialization as well. But for you who don't know, Carb is a 2.5-year-old startup with about 15 years of history, that is R&D. The story behind Carb actually dates back to 2006, a collaboration between 3 universities, University of Iceland, Columbia University, New York, and CNRS out of Toulouse in France. So the objective of that collaboration was to explore the potential of utilizing CO2 into the bedrock. So it would mineralize like Mother Nature has done for millions of years. And so here we have a simple basalt. Basalt is one of the most predominant rock formations on the globe, covering approximately 5% of all Earth that is on land, and about 70% of the ocean floor. So it's not limited to Iceland at all. Iceland, of course, being a very young, in millions of years age, an island, volcanic island, so a very fresh, young basalt, very recipient towards CO2. So what we do, we have managed to simply replicate what Mother Nature has done for millions of years and speed it up in a process that takes less than 24 months. So instead of this happening in hundreds, if not thousands of years, we have managed to scientifically prove that this process takes less than 24 months. So the process itself is relatively simple. It's, well, in a simple analogy, we're taking your Perrier and shaking it a little bit and pouring it into the ground. So it's a little bit more complex than that, but what we do, we dissolve CO2 in water. On a rule of thumb, probably about 1 ratio of CO2 and 25 of water. So it's really an intensive water, it needs a lot of water. So what we do then, we gently inject it into the ground. So let's say a bar of between 6 and 20. So it's really a gentle, it's not fracking or anything like that. So it's really simply pouring it into the ground. Then natural chemicals occur. The basaltic rock is very rich of cationic ions like calcium, magnesium, and iron. And once the highly acidic liquid comes into the touch of these cationic ions, it releases and the mineralization process starts to take place. This process ends with a solid carbonate. So what is happening? We are literally changing CO2 into stone. There is no risk of a leakage as the mineralization takes such a short time. There is a certain static pressure below, and that makes the actual CO2 heavier than the water, so it has a tendency to sink due to the solubility trapping. So all in all, the CO2 becomes part of the rock in less than 2 years. This is our, let's say, our home originally. So we are actually owned by Reykjavik Energy, which is the utility company out of Reykjavik. That was the hosting of the research project between these three universities. We were a research project until in January 2020, when then it was decided we should scale up the technology. Our TRL level was at 9 at that time, and we already were running one commercial project. Currently, we are running 2 commercial projects, and half, let's say, because that one will be fully commercialized by the end of the year. So we are actually operating capturing. We do have a proprietary technology in capturing, but our focus will be on actual injection. We are running capturing directly from the source at that geothermal facility, but we are 100% agnostic in terms of industries. We are furthermore 100% agnostic in terms of technologies. So we are working with Climeworks, which was mentioned here briefly before, because Climeworks is actually the first operator on a commercial level for a direct air capture, and that's hosted by us at our facility, Hellisheiði in Iceland. As I said before, this is not limited to Iceland. The storage capacity in Iceland is estimated to be a huge number of 2,500 billion tons of CO2. So that's a significant number. On a global basis, about 100,000 billion tons. That's even a bigger number. North America, it's estimated to be around 7,500 billion tons. So definitely it's not limited to Iceland. The 3 things that are needed to utilize this technology is A, basalt, B, water, lots of it, and C, of course, CO2. Regarding the basalt, we are already exploring other rock formations. We are actually doing a project here in Minnesota, exploring other rock formations. We're doing a project in Turkey and in Germany. The third part, the water part, is actually being explored using seawater. So you can imagine, once we have unleashed that riddle, that we are pretty much saying that we're opening Pandora's box in a very, very positive way. Because we already have published a paper on that, and those indications are extremely positive, and we will start doing trials this summer. So our market focus is, of course, Europe, being a European company, but then North America. North America is a very attractive place, not only from a geological point of view, not only from an emitter point of view, but also from all the incentives and the proactiveness of the market itself. So we are already putting our foot down in North America, especially USA. And this is actually a map on our website that gives you an indication of where this can be actually utilized. And it can definitely be utilized the entire East Coast, the entire West Coast, and quite a few places in between. So with that said, we have a very, let's say, high mission. We truly believe we have a tool in our hands that can significantly contribute in the global battle against climate issues. We have set ourselves a 1 billion ton target for 2035 or even sooner. That only happens with cooperation, and we are seeking partnerships across the globe, not only in Iceland or North America, but across the globe itself. The way that we enhance going forward is through utilizing 3 paths. The first one is mineral storage at the site. We can actually, where the emitter is located. If it's located in a geologically favorable area, we can inject the CO2 into the ground and the mineralization can take place. Furthermore, regarding direct air capture. So wherever the direct air capture wants to put its foot down and the geological conditions are favorable, we can actually utilize this technology. The third path is using transport to storage mineral hubs. This is actually a project that we are enabling in Iceland. This is where emitters are not located at a favorable geological site. So we would transport it, whether it's through pipelines, railways, vessels, or whatever it means. But this is an actual storage site that we are planning to build. It has already started the FEED study. We've already started the environmental impact assessment. And this is actually a project that we did apply for the European Innovation Fund. So this is a project that will be built, and we will start this in 2026. That is from an operational point of view. It will start in 500,000 tons per year, scale up 28 to 1 million ton, and then 3 million tons in 2031. Parallel to these 3, we envision that all these will be set apart across the globe, not only in Iceland. Iceland is not thought of as a dumping place for CO2. It's simply a demonstration of the scalability for the technology. So the coater terminal is the entire value chain. We are, as I said, agnostic in terms of who the actual emitter is and who actually is the capturing company of the CO2. So we will move it with our partner DynUnity. They are actually building vessels that are only purpose vessel is for CO2 transport. These vessels will be about 22,000 cubic meters. So they're quite big vessels. They're about 3 times larger than the longboat project in Norway is. So the distance people might think isn't too much. No, actually it's 1,500 nautical miles, or actually land miles, sorry, from Europe that the average point is. We envision that the cost of that will be around 50 euros. That is both the transport and the storage fee. So we have a solution that is extremely cost competitive. The capturing, the transport, and the storage at our facility in Iceland cost less than $25 per ton. That's probably a figure that you will not hear anywhere else. So we have a proven track record of, and scientifically backed, an operation as well. So these are just the timelines for this particular project. We call it the coater terminal. So why mineral storage? It's a natural solution. We're not adding any chemical or substances to it. It's fully natural, just Mother Nature, how it does, except we are speeding the process of quite a lot up. In regards to permanent storage, this is mineralization. So it binds itself into the rock formation. There's no way it can actually escape. So theoretically, monitoring would not be necessary, even though we would always monitor it at one point in time. The storage capacity is almost unlimited. It's safe. I mentioned the cost before, and it's based upon science. Science doesn't lie. In regards to commercialization, for us right now, we are working with a lot of the world's largest organizations in exploring and for them to understand the ability to utilize this technology on a global basis. We have companies that have hundreds of facilities across the globe, and they are looking at it from the map that I introduced to you earlier. And by the way, it's available on our website. So we would go through these consultancy agreement, and each step is a stepping stone. You won't start level 2 unless you're satisfactory with level 1, and so on and so on. We are and have already, let's say, established a commercial activity. We are operating in Iceland on 2 commercial projects, and the 3rd is on the way. The 4th will start in 2026, and that will be the coater terminal. Parallel, we are operating and will start projects across the globe according to that. So I think this is my last slide. I think this is the quickest seminar I've ever done in regards to, so I hope I was not over time, but yeah, thank you.
Next, we have Mike Belenkie, President and CEO of Entropy.
Thanks. That's okay. I might move a little bit. I might go a bit off script here. I was listening to the talk before by Mr. Persson with the Hewlett Foundation, and hear from Carfix, and I'm looking forward to the part from Svante as well. And I feel like this group is probably being exposed to a lot of different ideas that are difficult. Sometimes it can be difficult to try and make heads or tails of exactly what's happening here. So Entropy is a company that's specifically a carbon removal company. All we do is take carbon from what would have been in the air and we put it in the ground. And when I talk about this, we're not actually a pre-commercial, we're not a technology developer. We already developed the technology. We're already doing this. So it's a quick introduction here to the company. Pure play, carbon negative. We bring to the table, we own and we continue to develop new technology around carbon capture. We own lots of history around disposal of carbon dioxide and other waste fluids, geologically, which is commonplace. And of course, on top of that, you have the expertise that's required to run a business. So some of what I heard from Mr. Persson was the importance of philanthropy and government policy and so on. But really, we're of the belief that with government policy or subsidies or philanthropy, you get a demonstration project. But what we have here is a massive problem. It's a massive goal. We have huge goals in the world, and it doesn't get solved with showing that we can do it. It gets solved by actually putting a market together, understanding the cost of doing it, and doing it. So what we've done is we've come up with a full business deal. This business can be emulated over and over again around the world, and allow the market essentially, and the thousands or tens of thousands of people that want to do this, Find the best deployment of every capital dollar. The fundamental principle, of course, of capitalism. I know the United States is still a capitalist nation. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Same with Canada. I'm from Canada. I'm an engineer, by the way. It doesn't always feel like we're still sticking to the fundamental capital principles, but the most important thing here is if you have a fixed number of dollars to spend decarbonizing, find the best projects. That's what we do. That's what we're focused on, I should say. Now, we did pull out a couple slides because it's short, but it's important to note that Entropy, it's about, and we've been working on this Entropy business for about 3.5 years. It came out of a 20-year-old company that's a low-carbon gas producer. Carbon capture is a gas processing challenge. So when you want to figure out how to do gas processing, start with people that do gas processing. That's what we do. We do it very cheap. We have a long history of doing it very safely. What Entropy is the branch that only cares about the inverse of gas production, which is taking gas. So gas, of course, natural gas, if you're producing it from the ground, you get it from a reservoir, you bring it to the surface, you treat it, you sell it to a pipeline. Well, carbon capture is the opposite. And with the exception of direct air capture, carbon capture is taking it from a pipe, an exhaust pipe. This is a tailpipe of somewhere that you burnt fuel. You process it, and you stick it back in the ground. The market itself is the carbon price. So that's the business. What Entropy does is do only the inverse of a gas business or a resource business. Take it from pipe, put it in the ground. And the more you focus on that as the element that gets to be the most efficient way to deploy capital, the more you can disconnect from some of the nuances, the complexities that are out there, ideas and ideologies. So by focusing in specifically and making sure that we create the best market, we'll get the best result. Entropy owns and continues to develop more and more technology. The number one thing in carbon capture is cost. Capturing carbon can be done by almost any capable engineering company. The only problem is it can be very expensive. If you hire a generic company to do it, it may cost you twice as much as if you hire a next generation company, in particular Entropy. The second gen companies, the ones that are between us and the first gen, those companies tend to be about 25% cheaper than it used to be. We're about half. So we're now at a spot where we can capture carbon, process it, inject it into a disposal well, all for under $50 per ton today. We do that with a modular solution. We also have an integrated carbon capture module, which is the first one will be installed in the first quarter of next year. To do all this stuff requires the best chemistry. Chemistry is the only real pragmatic, currently used industrial solution for carbon capture. And of course, getting the best solvent, the best processes is the cheapest way to do it. And of course, to go with that, we need to recognize we are in the midst of an acute energy crisis. If what you do requires too much energy, it will cost you too much. It'll also be parasitic load from the system. Don't waste energy, don't waste capital. And then lastly, put this into the ground with the lowest possible cost. Straight down on your feet is always going to be the best solution if you can do that. Because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of emissions sites around the world, pick the ones that have a local solution. Avoid the pipelines. We do not need a network of pipes around North America or around the world to store carbon. Pick the projects that you can store the carbon under your feet. This is very important, not just because of the capital, but also the farther you have to pipe it, the more energy is required to pipe it with compression. All very important. These are all things that Entropy has refined to great lengths, to the point where we were able to sell half our company to Brookfield Renewable, in fact, funded by their Global Transition Fund, which is a $15 billion flagship fund, which was raised by Mark Carney. So we're essentially, we're not a pre-revenue, we're sort of pre-revenue. We'll be delivering revenue here in a few weeks. This is a well-developed existing corporate entity, and we believe that that's the solution for scale. I'm gonna have to keep moving here. Okay, first gen technology, this is what it looks like. You bubble exhaust gas from an engine or a boiler or from some other, again, natural gas turbine. You bubble that through a tower that's filled up with solvent. That solvent clings selectively to carbon dioxide only. The solvent becomes saturated. You pull that saturated solvent out and you reboil it, which frees the carbon dioxide in a different vessel. You take that pure carbon dioxide off, you compress it, and you stick it into a well. First gen, it's been used for 100 years. It's a little tougher to do it when it's from an engine. It's pollutants, it's hotter, it's lower concentration. This is stuff that is actually currently happening. Actually, you guys aren't allowed to ask us questions, which is great, but I'm gonna ask you a question. Can anybody tell me how many post-combustion carbon capture projects are running in the world right now? Anyone? Not a single person in the room. This is commercial. Let's just say commercial. Yeah. 200 are running? Yeah, I'm counting once. Okay. I said post-combustion. You caught that? Power plants. Okay. The answer is one. There is one running. So it's important. Hopefully everyone in the audience takes note of that. We're all experts in carbon capture. Everyone, we're all into carbon capture except for the fact that the post-combustion piece, it's only done once successfully. That's in Boundary Dam, Saskatchewan. I'm counting the 1 ton a year ones. Sorry, I'm talking about commercial carbon capture and storage, where we're doing it to actually bury it. So there's one other one that was done in Texas. That one was too expensive to run. They shut it down after 3 years. So this is a new industry. There was only a carbon market that was created with the 45Q, call it a year and a half ago, and in Canada, the carbon tax. And of course, in Europe, you have the ETS. This is a new business. First gen, too expensive to do it at the current carbon pricing. Second gen, I would call second gen sort of ended around 2011. There was a global research project run out of the University of Regina in Saskatchewan. Yes, also Saskatchewan. Why? Because Saskatchewan needed the CO2 for an EOR scheme, an enhanced oil recovery scheme. They came up with this as a global consortium. U of R was looked to by the UN IPCC to say, how do you do this? That's where they went to, U of R. Exxon came, Shell came, Equinor came, Aker Carbon Capture was there. All these different companies went to learn how to do post-combustion carbon capture from U of R because U of R was doing this since 1987 in anticipation of the need, okay? So they achieved a brand new level, we would call second gen. That's exactly the level that we start from with Entropy because those professors that did the work, the research facility that created this outcome, we actually have essentially purchased all the new technology that's come out of that. We've patented that, we own it, and the next step that came was 5 years later, 2016, the discovery of a brand new solvent. This solvent is the best solvent in the world by judgment of these independent researchers. It allows everything to happen cheaper, smaller, less energy, cost down. Essentially the same as the first gen technology, just cheaper. So that's pretty important stuff. The outcome is this project. This is the first project in the world on a gas-fired industrial emissions facility. It'll be starting up in 2 weeks. A lot of people aren't aware of that fact. It's the first one ever done on gas-fired. So this happening, phase 1 will be on 50,000 tons per annum. Phase 2 will be on in the first quarter next year, and the full plant will be complete by the end of next year, 200,000 tons per annum. This is the culmination of all that research, 35 years of work. Well, it's always fun to point this out. This is what it looks like. On the left, you have a 3D model. The colored tower is the contactor tower. On the right, you have it in real life. This is currently just northwest of Edmonton, Alberta. This is the compression. This is a gas compression. They're burning gas inside of engines, and the exhaust from those engines is being captured. The regeneration model is where you reboil that solvent, and you get the CO2 off the back end. The very important parts. And then if you look at the entire facility, every one of those little boxes on the bottom half of this picture, those are all compressors with engines. Every one of those engines is spewing out hundreds of, per year, 16,000 tons per year. So you put a contactor module on every one of those units, you capture 200,000 tons per year. The market will deliver these solutions as long as the market itself is functional. I won't talk about this much, except for the fact that Entropy really is unless there's a secret developer, we're now the largest developer of post-combustion carbon capture projects in the world, over 10 megatons per annum. And that happened very quickly. We only started to go public with this about a year and 2 months ago. But the fact is that the technology is quite unique. We just happen to be a couple years ahead on putting the business together. Some economics I could skip past. A few words on storage. Again, this is really, CarbFix is a fantastic technology to make sure you take away any of that concern about leakage. The technology for disposing of industrial waste fluids is actually well established. It's about a 100-year-old technology. It's simply using saline aquifers that are high permeability. You displace the existing water that's down there with the new fluid that you're injecting. Our background in industry has been to dispose of acid gas, including CO2 and H2S. Does anybody know what H2S is? How much H2S does it take to kill a person? Anybody? About 100 parts per million. It's a tiny number. That's the practice that industry has had dealing with disposal of waste fluids. That happens all over the world right now, where you have an industrial waste fluid that gets concentrated and injected down safely. If there's a leak of H2S, it will instantly kill everyone within a mile, right? I should move faster, I'm sorry. CO2 is not poisonous. It is not noxious, doesn't explode. If there's a leak of CO2, you fix the leak. You pay the carbon tax for the leak. So this is not something that's hard. This is something that's well done. Let's not focus too much on the risk there. Let's just make sure the education is good. And with that, I'd say functional carbon market, my sign off. You guys should really have a clock out here so we know how much time we've taken. I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Up next, Chad Badry with Svante.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for having us. It's a great venue. It's a great group of people. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. So for those of you that I haven't met, I look forward to meeting every single one of you. I guess first, before I begin, I want to admit something. You know, it's just me and a few of my closest friends. It's part of the healing process, right? I'm a recovering CO2 producer. Okay, I've produced a lot of CO2 in my life. I spent most of my life building the world's largest furnaces, you know, steam methane reformers all over the planet. And it's for products that we know and we love and we need. But now I'm a changed man. I'm a reformed man. So we're focusing on carbon capture. I want to talk to you a little bit about what Cevante is doing to do that. So first, I'll just get right into it. We took a playbook from Tesla, play out of Tesla's playbook. Svante Arrhenius was really the first person to acknowledge, you know what, if we get serious about burning fossil fuels, we're going to have a problem with CO2 in the atmosphere. And you know, the parallel to that is the fact that, you know, it was only in the late 1800s that we decided, you know what, we better start cleaning up this garbage issue. It's a big problem. And people started paying a small fee to get rid of their trash. And really, you know, CO2, you can't smell it, you can't see it. It's taken us a lot longer to realize that, but we're there today, and that's what we're talking about. So really, there's over 130 countries that have made a net zero pledge. There's over 5,000 companies that have said, you know what, this is important to us, and lots of good stuff happening in the market. The momentum has never been stronger. A little bit about us. We've got lots of partnerships. We realized right off that we couldn't do this alone, and nor should we. We've partnered with, first of all, EPCs. We partner with Kiewit in North America, so they do the engineering and some of the procurement and the construction, obviously, a pure American company. And we've partnered with Technip Energies worldwide, okay, to offer our solution. And we've also partnered with BASF to produce our metal organic framework. We do amine and we do metal organic framework as well. The difference is, you know, CO2 concentration, amines oxidize with the presence of oxygen in high temperatures. Metal organic frameworks does not. So that's a bit of a game changer. We've got a few pilot plants, small industrial facilities. One's been running for about 3-4 years up in Saskatchewan. Again, we hear this name. Where is it? What are they doing? This one is capturing about 10,000 tons per year of CO2. We're building a kind of a second generation of that for Chevron in Bakersfield, California. And we realized, you know what, we've got to get ready for the wave. So we're putting about $100 million into that facility in the middle on the right. That's going to produce all of our structured sorbent beds, okay, to be ready for that. You know, some partners, Chevron, Climeworks, Synovus for sure. And this is how we do it. So we essentially take a carbon fiber substrate. We put the sorbent material on it, we impregnate it on the front and the back, and we form it into a filter. So we take those filters, we make sure that the flue gas doesn't channel. We then put it into a rotary contactor. That contactor, A, absorbs CO2, B, desorbs CO2, and then we condition the bed getting ready. That makes one rotation every about 60 seconds. To get a little bit more granular, basically you take the flue gas, we are point source capture and direct air capture. So we create these filters with different sorbent materials to work for both direct air capture and point source. In this case, the point source, we take the flue gas, we cool it down to around 45 degrees C. It absorbs onto the filter. We then countercurrent steam at around 120 degrees C. We desorb the CO2, and then we condition the bed. So very, very simple process. It's no volatile emissions. Something that's easy to understand. This is the small industrial facility that's been running for a few years. Very successful for us. We've brought people from all over the world to see that facility. In fact, we've got some American friends coming next week to come see it, which is great. This is the generation 2. It's being built right now. It's going to be commissioned in about 30 to 45 days. Essentially, again, you can see the process. It's a little more modular. We take the flue gas, condition it, send it through our rotary air machine. We then hit it with steam, desorb the CO2, and then we condition the beds. Those pictures in the bottom right-hand side were taken a couple of weeks ago. And I guess the analogy is we've got to be ready for this. Every speaker this morning talked about it. We're talking about gigaton scale, right? We can't wait for POs. We can't wait. Everybody's getting ready. They're doing their studies. They're doing their feeds. And every company is getting up to the starting line, and they're trying to figure out what technology to use. So the analogy that we did is we're going to have this facility, production facility that we're investing about $100 million into. That'll be ready by the end of next year. And it's going to be largely factored on a battery manufacturing. So the analogy is a roll to roll. The sorbent on a roll is, in a battery perspective, you create the batteries, you put the batteries in a module, you then insert the module into the unit, and it's the exact same for us. We have sorbent on a roll, we take those filter stacks and create a filter bed, and then those beds go into the rotary filter that is designed for the customer, for the client. So this is what it is. It's essentially somewhere between 400 ton a day and up to 2,200 ton a day, and then if you want more than that, you piece them together. Pretty elegant solution. It's not a complex chemical facility. It's a pretty simple rotary mechanical filter. And again, we couldn't do this without our partners. BASF, we were just over to see them. We're going to have production facilities in Germany and the US. 3M, this is perfect fit for them. They're a great company. From an EPC perspective, we've got that on the go, and a lot of interesting partnerships. Including we've heard the name a lot today just because of their recent success with Climeworks. We're working with them. I guess second, let's see, I think that's it. So the other thing is happening for us is we've been around for about 15 years. So we've been operating this for a long time. It's not a new technology. It's a technology that we're scaling. For the speakers this morning, for all the bankers out there. We're currently in the round of a Series E financing round that closes probably in about a month, and lots of good things happening, very positive. So thank you for having me.